Thanks everybody for joining. This is our 11th Insiders Call. Uh, the agenda today, we're going to start off with something a bit new. We're going to open it up for anyone to share what they're working on, and I'll give a few prompts to get you thinking. There's no pressure, just like informally sharing what everybody is working on, and then we're going to jump into a discussion about different learning resources, materials from ODK or externally different resources that you're using, and a few folks have already shared some ideas in the chat, so we'll kind of build on that. And then Kathleen is going to take us through some entities, resources, some new things we're cooking up, and getting some feedback from you all on what you want to learn about, what would be helpful as you kind of journey into the world of entities, or maybe you're very advanced and you're sharing new techniques with us, which is really great as well. So we'll do that, and then we'll end with some product updates, and then we'll have some space for Q&A at the end as well. So that's what we have in store. So we're going to start out with sharing your work. We've heard from a lot of you that you want to hear from others on the call what they're working on. And so I have a few prompts to get us thinking, and I shared these on the forum as well, but you could share a little bit about your project, how you're using ODK. You could share a form that you're working on. You maybe share your screen so we can see it. You could share your screen really to show anything, but maybe a form. Could be celebrating a recent project milestone, something that you're proud of, you want to share with the group, or maybe something that you learned on the forum, and there's already tons of sharing going on. So we could share something like that. Maybe others on the forum haven't seen it yet. So we're going to do this for about like we have time for maybe about 3 to 4 people to share, and maybe about 3 to 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see everybody. Let me just do that now. All right. And I'll put these questions in the chat if that's helpful as well. Does anyone have anything they would want to share? Any updates, things you're working on?
I can share something
Yeah.
with you.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep, we can see it.
It's in Spanish. Sorry. This is a big project in Mexico. As you can see, this form is like a follow-up form. I'm going to open something that, let me see. Now we are facing some speed or display issues because we have a lot of data in the project. But we are going to fix this maybe this week. And what we are doing here is that we are working with farmers that produce corn, coffee, and other crops in Mexico. The project is about Iki. Let me see why I can see my. I'm going to open another one. And we are working with a mitigation of the climate change here in Mexico for crops for 4 years. We are the team of monitoring in field. And yeah, the only great tool that we're using is ODK, because it's the only thing that we can monitor in the field all the changes about for 4 years. And I don't know why I can't open the form. Maybe it's just the internet speed. Give me 1 second if I can open another one. Look, right now we have more than 400 registers or forms that people are working in field. And I want to show you the form. Let me see if we can load the form. And what another thing that I can add here. Sorry, maybe it's my server, because we're using a physical server for the project. And yeah, but I don't know why I can load the form. Okay, that's
There we
it.
go.
Perfect. This is the project in Mexico, Saberes. That's the name. We are trying to train people in field. We are working with these organizations. WRI, maybe you know this is a big entity, Gaia, and another UECN for species, and an ICA in Mexico and Colombia. And it's a great tool because, as you can see, we use entities. And for example, first of all, we have a form that we need to create the event on field, for example. And here the people select the event with this drop list. I'm going to okay. But here's a drop down about an entity that comes before. Look, these all the events that we have in all states in Mexico: Chiapas, Tabasco, Puebla. That's the names of the events. We have so of course some fields that we need to have for the project. And another good tool, of course, the photos for the events that we need to check. And this is another great tool. We have here the farmers. This is another follow-up entities that we are using. And here the people add for in a loop all the names that people participate on the for example, in this capacity, in this training, right? And here we can the project needs to count for statistics all how many women, how many men, how many children, for example, participates in these trainings, the age, because for us is very important, the age, the sector, and the state, and all these yes, of course, statistics we need to. In this case, we are using this, of course, Looker Studio decks or dashboards. Can you see my dashboard right now? And
No.
no?
No.
I'm going to present quickly my dashboard. I'm going to finish with this. Let me see. And this is my deck, my dashboard. We are building it. I think next year we are going to use Python to improve the speed of the, the Lookers sometimes have some limitations, but it's great to know that in this case we have numbers that is important for the project. For example, the total of assistance right now for this, because this is for Gaia. We have this is the dashboard from Gaia, and the numbers of the events. For example, farmers, edge categorization, and another, of course, graphs and a lot of more things. And of course, the filters. It's very important for us to have filters to have more data, right? And yeah, we are using this for Mexico. I think it's a great tool. We are having some display issues, as you can see from Enqueto, but I think that we can have the solution this week because farmers enter to check their information, and they want that you need to approve the information and then pass to the dashboards, because we don't want to pass all the information or data. And yeah, that's something that I want to share with you here in Mexico.
Thank you. Amazing. That's so great to see. Does anyone have any questions or want to share? Can I have a few more people share their work? That was awesome. Thank you so much. Very helpful to see it all as well.
I have somebody else.
Off you go, Tyler.
You want me to go first, or you want to go?
I don't mind. I'll crack on. I'll be brief anyway. I'm afraid I don't have anything like to put on screen. But very briefly, colleagues work in DR Congo running surveys for tsetse flies across the country. And so the way that their data structure works is that they have a number of sampling locations, a number of sampling sites, and they visit them every 3 to 6 months. And at each site, they lay out 8 separate traps, and they set the site, and then 48 hours later, they come back and collect the site and record the number of flies that have been trapped. And this program's expanding, so the number of sites and the number of traps that are being set is going up, sort of essentially month by month. And they had been for a number of years using a very expensively made bespoke application, which because it's expensively made and bespoke, it doesn't work. So I finally persuaded them to move over to ODK. And so logistically, in terms of implementation, the 2 big challenges I've been having has been sort of cleaning up the underlying data to preload into the system so that we've got that all of that data that's already been collected. But then sort of how I use entities going forward, because we've got essentially sort of 2 separate levels. We've got the sites and then we've got the traps, and obviously currently we can only handle the 1 layer of entity. So at the moment I'm developing it to have the entities as the individual traps, and then come up with some rules around how we define the site so that they can move into a new area and they can set a site, and then they can nominate where their 8 traps are. And then for all the future visits, they can come back and repeat that. One development that's really helped us is the ability to store the entities locally on the phone, because DRC, the network coverage is hugely patchy. So there is no possibility of them uploading their data between setting the trap and 48 hours later collecting it. But now that that's possible, it's been a huge help. But I'm just dreading I'm putting off the day that I have to go and clean this underlying data, because as we all know, data cleaning is one of the worst jobs in the world. So yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you. That's a great explanation.
All right. Can I go here really quick? Can you guys
Yeah,
hear me?
yeah, please do. Yep.
I'm gonna try to share my phone screen and see if that works to see the live form that I got going over. Can you guys see my screen or no?
No.
Not yet.
Their entire screen. How about that? How about now?
Did you screen
Not
share a lot of
yet.
people on a Zoom call?
It's not showing the
It's not
ODK.
even opening a screen sharing window for us.
Okay, give me a sec here. Oh boy, display over, maybe I need to display it over Zoom. Allow display over other apps. I think that's, there
Yep.
we go.
Hey, there it's working.
That, now you guys see, can you guys see an ODK form here?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So this is kind of a different project than what I normally am working on, but this is essentially, I work in a very remote rural part of West Africa and am running a small fruit tree farm. And so we have about 300 fruit trees, and we just have one full-time local employee who is illiterate and monolingual in the local language. So this is my attempt at trying to have a timesheet made for somebody who is, who is illiterate. So he basically goes through this and can select what time he started and stopped his work in the morning or whenever. And I have it all based on activities, and each activity has a photo, or it actually, this first question here, I don't know if you can hear that audio, but everything on here for all the questions has audio, and I try to limit the amount of text as much as possible. And so first question here is basically looking at all the different areas of the farm that he would potentially be working at. And the second question is basically filtered out from those different places. So if he's working on the house, he could be organizing, he could be repairing things. If he's actually working in the field, there's kind of further filter questions. Is he working on the whole thing? Is he working on intercropping? Is he working on the big trees? If he's working in intercropping, is it perennial or is it an annual crop? And then all of these photos are the actual activities. So can you guys hear those audios coming in or not really?
We can't hear the audio,
No.
unfortunately.
Okay, well, each one of these photos has, when you tap it, has an audio in the local language, so he can know which one of those it is. And basically this is how we keep track of his work on the farm. And this is just set up as a repeat. I actually didn't put a valid response. I have to be working for longer than 0 minutes here. So one of the things that is really helpful is you can see right away for him how many hours and how many minutes he worked during a certain task. So if he did multiple different tasks during the day, you can say, for the first couple hours, he planted some trees and then he cleaned up the house. You can just hit next here, and then it would go through a repeat, and then he'd be able to add. And I've made the logic so that the time automatically starts at the last time there. So this is just my attempt at trying to make a timesheet, and it's also, the activities are also able to be filtered or customized based on whoever is filling out the form. So filtered by the username, and you could have, a manager or different kind of levels of employees for that kind of thing. So that's what I got.
That's very cool to see.
Yeah, I like how
How's it?
like tailored and deep it was for like a specific like context and specific person and all of these different modalities to help him out.
Yeah, so part of that is the communication between me and him. Being illiterate, I'm not able to really gain an idea if I look over a season, like how much time did he spend, working, doing a certain task. And in terms of calculating costs for different aspects of the farm, that's really what I'm trying to look at, is if we're looking to expand, what aspects of labor would we need to increase, and what, you know, what are the things that we're okay on? So.
Hey, Tyler, have you considered expanding it to like log key events, like say the start of the rains, or if you notice particular problems kicking on, so that you can sort of use it for monitoring as well as timesheet,
Yeah.
stuff?
I mean, that's actually, so my principal use of ODK is for an observation sheet, and that one is much more detailed and kind of a crazy, it's become a Frankenstein of a sheet, but it does work. And we use that for all of our farm observation, for tracking all of our trees. And that's essentially because we're starting, we imported these grafted trees from abroad, and so they were very expensive to get here. And in many cases, there's only one of them. And so making sure that it stays alive is really important. And any of you who've ever planted a tree in a rural area of Africa probably knows that there's many things that want to kill trees. Animals, fires, people, etc. So yeah, this is my main use for ODK, is the observation.
I think there's a few of us that would love to see that sheet in all its glory. Does anybody else? Well, thank you so much for that, Tyler. Yeah, maybe one
Yeah.
or two more. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
Should I
go ahead.
go? Andrew,
Oh,
Oh, I
Go
was
on,
going to say
Don.
really quickly, less work related, more just what, what else can you use ODK for? On the weekend, I built a form for an Easter egg hunt for my niece, using all kinds of different questions and interactions in it. So it's got QR codes, it's got audio clues, it's got, go to this point on the map to dig up something else. The whole gamut of questions and interactions, bit of logic, and but fairly simple, one pass through. So that was a fun exercise to set up for a few weeks from now.
amazing.
Nice. Yeah, I have prepared something. I'll try to be brief. This is a form that I use to follow up on some activities that some students do, and I'm using entities. That's the reason why I want to show you. So we have a kind of a municipality filter question here. So for each municipality, sometimes we have schools
You want to share
connected
your
to that.
screen? Are
I'm
you sharing it?
sorry.
It sounded
I
like you were
thought I was.
explaining something.
I'm sorry.
Don't
Well,
worry.
where am I? Sorry.
While he's getting that set up, we probably have time for one more. Jules, if you want
Yes.
to queue yourself up to go next, if that's okay.
Okay. Well, share my screen. This one. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Is it okay now?
Yes,
Yes.
perfect.
Yeah, bunch of tools, but no ODK. So here is where it starts. So I have this form and I have this question, the select one question that filters down cities with some schools there. And for each, I have students that already filled a registration form. If they are not on the list, they click here and then it opens the registration form so they can fill their registration and then after that follow up on the activity. That's one thing I'm doing now. This is the entities, the participants entities. And another important thing that I have to do is to create a spreadsheet that displays all the information for users, but not with the codes, the names of the cities, the municipalities, but with the labels. And some data is restricted, so I cannot display the full security social number on the spreadsheets. I have to create kind of a mask for that. And I did that by using Python. The first thing I always do in Python for working with ODK is create a kind of a blueprint of each form. I have a script that builds this blueprint or this map for the whole form with all the labels and names of each question, and also labels and names for each choices lists that are on the form. So I open the XLS form and process everything to create this blueprint of the form. So when people look at data in Central, they can refer to this to understand what's there, because Central just records the names and not the labels. And then I create this file, which is basically a list of Python dictionaries. For each choice list, I have a dictionary that is created to deal with that. And then finally, I use this code. So I am processing here with a single instruction. I'm saying Python that I want to change the municipality name to map using the cities dictionary to change from my Rinki, which is that's my name, and this is my label. And also the CPF, I do kind of the same. I can create a new field, blocking all the sensitive information, and I'm showing them to the users just this kind of information, masked or hidden. And then this is line of code that creates the spreadsheet. I just want to show you because it's, I'm always talking about Python. This is really simple, you know, using the right tool is just one line of code and you get to this final spreadsheet. That's it.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.
I love seeing the forms and also seeing the Python and the things that people are doing kind of outside of Central and stuff with their data. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, time for one more quick one. Jules, do you still want to share? I saw you come off mute. No pressure though. Perhaps you were asking a question.
Yeah, sure, sure. I mean, I'm struggling to fire up my virtual machine, which would have been helpful to show what I wanted to share. But basically, it's a project I've been working on for several years, as I could remember. It started as Excel macro, then evolved into something relatively large. But the struggle was always once you finish collecting your ODK data, then you always have to transform that data, get the dictionary, and then analyze it in different platforms. Back in the days, SPSS for my organization was the key, data analysis tool. And that has specific raw data, and you have to do the data dictionary associated with that. So it was always challenging. You would spend 1 week looking into the proper data dictionary. Any change in the form would cause more change in the dictionary and so forth. So I ended up developing this tiny tool that if you have a form with 6,000 variables, that's exaggerated, maybe 1,000, then you would come up with the dictionary within just one click. And there are several other tools that does exactly the same, but the key challenge was always, how do I deal with the select multiple questions? Those can either be analyzed as just 1 and 0s that this variable and this option was used, or you just use the multiple response sets in SPSS. And that was one of the key wins of the tool. But also knowing that the organization was collecting more than 100 forms every month. By year, we would have more than 300 questionnaires. Then running that dictionary was becoming almost impossible. But the tool allows you to build your own repository of 1,000 forms, all the dictionaries. And then you can also reverse engineer the dictionary back into XLS forms. So unfortunately, I couldn't get my virtual machine to be able to share the screen and showcase at least one form. But this is something, if the opportunity allows, I would be able to show. And it was also developed in the good for public. And in the coming days, I'll be looking into who can test and who can give feedback to improve. But this is a tool that can benefit many who uses SPSS, but then if I get more feedback, it could also go to other tools like R, Python, and so forth, but primarily SPSS, as it was sort of left behind in the ecosystem of other ODK supporting tools. Yeah, and that's that.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe we'll do this for the next call. We'll do another similar kind of opening, and then maybe you could share at that point, Jules, if that works for you. Could do that.
Definitely.
Does that how does this format work for everyone? Trying to switch it up. We really benefit from hearing what all of you are working on. Thumbs up. You can thumbs down it if it's not working. That's totally fine feedback. Okay, look amazing. Let me quickly share my screen again. Okay, is that all right? Yes, hopefully. Okay, so now we want to, we're gonna have to condense some of the other sections, but I think that that was really worthwhile to hear from a lot of you. We want to spend a little bit of time talking about learning resources. And so I have kind of three different sections. What's working well today in terms of resources that could be inside, like materials from ODK or external. And then we'll move into what would be helpful for beginners or new ODKers, and then thinking about resources for folks that are more advanced or have been using ODK for a while. So I'll keep these questions on the screen rather than going to the kind of gallery view. But in terms of what's working today, we'd love to hear from others maybe that haven't shared yet. What are you using? What are, like, it could be, it's totally fine if it's outside of ODK. Jana's YouTube channel was shared. There's a few others. I think I have some themes here from what folks shared already. What's your go-to resource? Maybe kind of something that you bookmark that you go to often to look at. And then we're curious to hear what formats work best as well. Or maybe there's a combination of formats. Maybe I'll open it up. Does anyone have thoughts on this in terms of what's working well today?
And I use the docs quite a lot, and the forum. They're probably the two main ones for me. I've got quite a lot of forum posts that are bookmarked within the forum as they're using the reminder function, which I'll sometimes use as either like a future like no time reminder, or something like I want to come back to this in X days and look at it again when I've got more time to digest it and read it.
That's smart.
Yeah, so sometimes it's someone else has come up with like, here's an example, or here's a functionality or something, and like I can see how I could use that in the future, but I don't need it right now, so I'll come back to it in a month and look at it again.
It's very smart. I need to leverage that feature more. I use that on Slack, but that's really helpful to use on the forum as well. It's a great tip.
Yeah, I mean, as well as just regular Google searches, I mean, one of the key things is actually forms that you've developed previously. And you go, oh, yeah, I did something like that previously, but then you spend half an hour trying to remember which form, which document it was and where you saved it. But you know that you've done something like that before and you've got to go and dig it out.
Yeah, we've definitely all been there.
Hi. So
Hi.
yeah, my go-to will be ChatGPT. I get to use it once in a while just to check my codes. Like it's a bit faster for me. Recently I was designing a form, which I get to sell. So it's a roster, and I get to pull out the members to the choices and call them in another question. And for each, I call them into another roster. And for each of the person selected, I get to drop that person for the next iteration. Even though that, I got a document from the forum. One, it's called, just a sec, drop and repeats. That really helped me. So it's basically ChatGPT and the forum.
Makes a lot of sense. Maybe I'll hop to, it seems like there's quite a bit of overlap on that one amongst us on the call. I'm curious to know maybe new people on your team, or maybe you can think back to when you first started, what was really helpful or what you would want to kind of point people towards.
When I first started using, the thing that I basically built all my forms on was there was just some sample ODK like XLS forms that just had exemplars of all of the questions, and just I think even some of the forms that I still run now have still got a couple of those like geopoint questions still copied from that
Yeah.
original sample form, which was like, so particularly from somebody like me who doesn't pay attention when they're reading stuff, to see things sort of visually laid out was really helpful.
Yeah.
Yes, I think adapting something that exists is often one of the quickest startup ways to you can see something that you know works, and then you can start to break and change it to understand, I either need to change this for the thing I need, or add to it.
And in that vein, showcases are really great, but real life forms often have like 25, 30 different design decisions in them. What would really be useful is like an index with like a tiny example that solves exactly one problem and has a few explanations of how we can apply this problem. And then everyone can kind of recombine that for themselves, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And since it's an XLS form and everything is kind of just a row in a spreadsheet, it's kind of, you can copy paste your form together somehow. So there's some shape in there where you go, 12 different problems I have to solve in my form, find those 12 different examples somewhere in the showcase index, in the best practices as well. That would be amazing.
So, well, for me, I get to direct most new users to the ODK build. I've had a reason to train medical doctors who were hoping to learn how to design a form. So all I needed to do was to direct them to the ODK build, and after designing, I asked them to export it and see how it looks in XLS. So that helps them understand how that works. I told them basic, they just needed to learn this part so that they would appreciate when you now type full stop or when you put greater than.
Yeah, we also have a few in the chat as well to kind of build on these. Yeah, the forum, Kobo forum, yeah, the various kind of other resources. Thank you for linking those. Build, Matthew, the template helped a lot. It's good to hear. All right. I'll keep pressing on. Oh, I added icons for visuals. So for more experienced ODKers, which maybe would be quite a few on the call here, I'll definitely put you into that bucket. Lots of experience to share and advanced skills. Are there any resources that you've tried that didn't work so well, maybe that we've put together, or you think that could be further improved, maybe ones that we haven't talked about so far, or any big gaps that you see in the resources?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's a gap, but it's also expanding on the docs, which currently is more linear. You have to go from one step to the other.
Right.
And then later on combine and come up with a full picture. When I was starting using ODK, there was one example that always baffled me. It was using select multiple to control repeats, and always retrieve the repeat, the selected items to the repeats, and then go back and change and do the same. So everything exists in the docs, but then having that expanded example that sort of says, hey, if you want to combine topic 5, 6, and 10, this is what you could come up with. And probably the other way to come up with that would be there are many challenges out there that maybe people don't even dare to post because they think it would take longer to solve. So they always try to chunk it in small pieces, but then putting it together again becomes another challenge. So if we have an open room where you say, okay, bring your topic, you may not always get a full answer, but if someone has done it before and has a form that can respond to that, so if that becomes a successful response, then maybe it can be posted back to docs as sort of showcases that says, this is a full package that combines 10 topics into getting one answer. But it has been helpful. So at least the forms that I've developed in the past, which I never had a chance to document properly, have always been a combination of more than 10 topics in one. They could be useful, but then documenting them very well in a way that can help beginners understand what is going on would be another maybe way to think of the docs. Yeah. Over to you.
That's really helpful. Thank you. I am going to maybe pass things over to Kathleen, being mindful of time. I'm sorry. And share a little bit about, yeah, on the entities side and resources.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. I'm Kathleen, and I work on Central and on entities specifically. And so we've been talking about learning resources overall, but I also want to like dive into entity resources for like learning about working with entities specifically. And next slide, please, Allie. Just in case anyone who is not familiar with entities, they basically represent a thing that can be shared between forms and can change over time. And they can represent like real specific things like a tree or a city or a household or a patient that you're visiting and like updating. Or they can be more abstract things like a shipment that like the status of it changes, or like a there's a huge variety of things, and we've heard some of those examples already. And then the entities can be grouped together, or they are grouped together into these like shared data sets. They're called entity lists, and these are attached to forms, shared between forms. And they're basically like a spreadsheet or like a choice list that can be shared and be updated outside of the form and feedback into the form. So you can actually have forms that like create data that can like automatically feed back into follow-up forms. And then, this is like, we built this to support longitudinal data collection, things like service delivery or other complex workflows. Again, we've heard a bunch of examples of things that people are doing with entities right now. And so given that, I want to talk about the resources for entities, because there are like some power users that are already figuring out like really amazing complex things to do these entities, and I love to see that. But also overall, these are a relatively new topic to like everyone within ODK, and so people with different levels of experience with ODK overall are still only like 2 years max like in exposed to entities, and we have all these new things like offline entities, updates, new features that will build into entities. And because these are fairly new, the resources that go along with them are also kind of new and underdeveloped, and there's such a wide space of things that people can do with entities that we are kind of unsure what to prioritize in terms of resources. Like, what is the most helpful for people that are already like making progress with the system, or people that like could benefit from incorporating entities into their workflow but like don't quite know how to get started? Are they, we want to know kind of where the roadblocks are and what we could do to help. And we've got some resources already, like some tutorials that are really complex workflows of some things, and we have some videos that are a little bit out of date. And we are thinking about ways to freshen these up. Because there are questions on the slide, I'll like open it up for discussion for a few minutes before moving on, maybe like 2 minutes. I don't know. Are there existing entity resources that people are finding like really helpful right now, or are there other things that are like gaps and things that are sort of bigger pain points? the answer might be like the docs in the forum are again the resources that people go to. I know like based on what people wrote in the response to this particular forum post about this insiders call, some of the techniques that people are using are like, you know, they're finding like bits of examples and they're just practicing with the different techniques until like they build up their understanding, or they're trying to work through these basic operations of like, how do you just get the basics of like creating, reading, updating, deleting entities, and what does that mean for a workflow? Is there anything else that anyone wants to add at this point?
Can I add a massive kudos for the docs? If you compare how the docs are looking at the moment to say 5 years ago when they were already great, but how they are now, it's amazing what you guys have done. And if you just keep moving in that direction, it's like the written text body of all the docs in there. That's just so amazing. It's just everything is there, kind of, and it's so well explained, and it's friendly, and the wording is amazing. I'm not a native speaker, so I translate everything in my head or not, and so this is really a massive resource you've got there in the docs, and basically all the efforts you put into and all the hard blood you put into the docs, that is massively appreciated by the community, and it's super useful. And basically, if you just keep going in that direction, you're doing absolutely amazing.
Wonderful, excellent. Thanks. It's great to hear. I guess speaking of docs, kind of, let's see, next slide, Allie. Like my personal feeling about the docs and some things that we've heard from people is like there's a lot. They're very deep, but sometimes it's hard to kind of find exactly what you're looking for. And with entities specifically, the only resources we had were these sort of like long docs. And I was finding it hard to like, I built this, but I don't know like what is the syntax for this exact thing again. And so very recently we put together this like entity cheat sheet that is meant to complement the extended docs that just has like the snippets of syntax for things like how do you, like if you are making a form that creates or updates entities, what does that look like? What do you need in what parts of your form? There, you know, you can scroll through to there's a part that's like a form that produces entities. There's another part that is for forms that consume entities, and trying to work through some of the like, how do you select an entity? How do you get properties off of it? How do you get what you need to update the entity later? And then there's like a bit at the end that's kind of trying to tell you, like explain the shape of an entity and what's in it. So one of the fun fact, I was like trying to put this together and like looking through the forum for things like there were forum posts, there was things like Andrew had a post about something that like spelled out like the way to do the conditional creates and updates, and so now that is here, that is like accessible, hopefully much easier to find than hunting through long documentation. But I want to say thank you to people like writing in the forum and discussing this so that there are these resources to kind of like pull on and assemble. So you can check that out. And real quickly, I just wanted to like, I don't know, give you a quick tour of other resources you are probably aware of. Our documentation is here. We have some videos. We are thinking of more videos to make and like what we could do to make those kind of like the right shape, that are easy to consume, easy to produce, cover different topics. What else do we have, Allie? Next slide. We have this XLS form template. I hope this is useful to you. This is super useful to me. When I want to make a new form, where do I start? I don't have to start from a totally blank canvas. So I recommend checking that out. What next? Yeah, we are thinking of like future ideas for what to do with our documentation. Maybe there's ways to restructure it to make it easier to find certain things. We definitely want to have more examples and tutorials, both of like snippets, chunks of things that you could assemble yourself, but also tutorials that kind of combine a couple ideas together into, you know, the scenario that you really want. And template libraries, guides for form design. Some of this is like we had ideas in mind, especially about like entities, for example, like what are some of the design assumptions that we were baking into how we built it, like maybe you'll have not very many properties on an entity, but you could have a very long list of entities. Those kinds of things, like we have been thinking about, but we may not have explained them as much. And so we want to kind of share like guides for what we think is a good way to set up various forms and projects. What else? Okay, we'll jump into product updates, and the first update is about Central. So we're in the middle of our Central release right now. We're hoping to wrap it up in the next, as soon as we can. We have been working on it for a while, and we want time for more improvements later. The theme of this release has been sort of like a visual redesign and improving the form draft page so that it's clearer and it's, you know, improved. There's some other things about like navigation, improved breadcrumbs. There's these info nav buttons. There's other things that are kind of like freshening it up. And then also web forms is in there. There's going to be a way to opt in to the thing that is replacing Enketo, and that'll be new and great. Next slide. What else? We are thinking about the next release for Central, and one of the things that we are going to target in that is entity access. And instead of every data collector getting the entire list of entities, when that's a lot of data, maybe they shouldn't have access to that, we are thinking of ways to limit that, to restrict that. There's a forum post about some ideas for this, like moving forward, and we have a plan for sort of like 3 potential phases of something that we could like build something, get it out there, and then continue to iterate on that. So please go to the forum for that and like read that, leave your feedback. Like this is not set in stone, so we would love to know, like, what do you want to do with this? Is this going to work for you? Is this not going to work for you? What are we not seeing that we need to take into account? And now I'll turn it back over to Allie to finish this up.
Great. And I'll just make one more note on this. What we shared in this post around limiting entity access is really building on some of that user management research and prototypes that some of you gave feedback on, and really trying to focus it in. And all of that feedback is going to make it into future releases, which we're really excited about. We're just trying to set that foundation in order to build on that. So if you have feedback, yeah, like Kathleen said, please let us know. We want to hear from you so that we can make sure it works for everybody. On the web forms side of things, where we've been building up the foundations for editing, so you can submit and edit forms. As Kathleen mentioned, the opt-in to web forms is going to be available soon. So you can, you'll see something like this where you can opt in, and we'll give you a little bit of information in a modal eventually about what does that mean for you, things you should think about, and it's per individual form. But in the future, you might want to do that for your entire project. So those are things we're thinking about. We've been working on the date, question type, image upload, and then next we're working on submission attachments, and a lot of new design improvements, just polishing things up and being able to theme web forms with maybe your logo or the colors of your organization to make sure it feels formal and incredible. We've heard a lot of feedback on that. On the collect side of things, some of you have already given feedback on the beta that's out. On the last Insiders Call, we talked a lot about mobile device management. So if you missed that one, we gave a demo. Ellen gave a demo about it, and all of the incredible kind of abilities that it gives you if you're managing a lot of devices. And then we have a few other updates as part of that beta, remembering the language after a form update that was getting reset each time, which was quite annoying. Hidden answer appearance for string from external app. That's another piece that's part of that beta. And then the big thing we're working on, and I think Grzegorz is on the call today, as edits on device, and we're really excited. It's getting to a good place, so hopefully we'll be able to share more on that, and then displaying media in the summary and form building. So seeing the actual images so that it makes it easier to know what you've captured. Woo, okay, I know that was a whirlwind. The we can stay on as well, but I know a lot of you have a hard stop. So we really want to be mindful and respectful of your time. What we're going to do is summarize all of these resources and things that you all shared, and we'll put them on the community post so that everyone can see it. Please give feedback on the cheat sheet. Like, just send us a message, maybe on the forum, or send us directly a message. Let us know, is there something missing? We want to, incorporate all of your things that you kind of fall back to. Maybe would be helpful for others as well. And then feedback on that limiting entity access. The next call will be on the 7th, and then we're going to take a break in June. And I think that's it. Kathleen, is there anything I missed?
I don't think so. I think that was great.
Okay.
Where can we find the
Okay.
entity cheat sheet?
Yes, I'll just put it in the chat here.
Yes.
There we go. Does anyone have, if you have to jump off, totally fine. Thank you so much for joining. If anybody has any questions, I haven't been able to monitor the chat, so feel free to come off mute and ask your question.
I've got a question on the
Yeah.
waveforms in Keto. Do you have a timeline on when Enketo will drop off the code base and when we can pre-build Docker images?
I think this is I don't have an exact timeline. Timelines are tricky. I think this is very, very far in the future, but we will give everybody like a lot of notice ahead of time. We won't do that kind of like a harsh transition, but I imagine this will be quite far down the line, but we'll make sure you know.
That is it's super exciting. Our networking team is making progress on moving towards Kubernetes and using Amazon Elastic Kubernetes Service, and just packaging everything up that is anything that's not on the count of 3 somewhere in the trees gets packaged into with Kustomize and slung against EKS. So this would be ideal if we had pre-baked Docker images.
Right.
But not a drama if we have to build it locally. I think the SSL certificates will be the interesting bit that we have to solve. But yeah, there was a recent forum post on Kubernetes and deploying.
Yes, that's right. Okay,
So
that's good for us
There
to
are
keep in
definitely
mind.
plans to keep Dockerizing things and make it easier so that people don't have to build everything locally.
Yeah.
Could you give an idea for the planning for web forms? When do you think you might reach the functionality of Enketo?
Yeah, I will share. I don't have the link handy. Another one of the different phases, and actually that's a good point. Maybe we should share a little bit more on the phases. So you all know the roadmap is pretty much up to date, but we're working through things. We're a pretty small team, but maybe as an action off the back of this, we could update those phases. I wish I had it. Let's see. I could try to find. I feel like search never works.
There's like
Let's see.
in the last 2 months, we have another engineer working on web forms.
Yeah.
Sodic,
Oh, here it is.
it works between Central and web forms and is working on getting that integration with Central. I think that's sort of the main priority that I can see right now, is just handling that integration while we continue to add functionality to get it up to the level of where Enketo was.
Yeah, and Enketo has so many features, and I think that most of the core functionality will be there. It's just it kind of depends on what your needs might be. Like if like there's annotations, there's a lot of things that we want to do offline functionality. So this post outlines some of what we're considering, and so maybe I'll update this and give more now that we're a little bit further in. I can give more details, but like Kathleen said, yeah, we have 2 engineers working on it now, and so the goal is to try to get the kind of core building blocks so that it works for most forms and most use cases, and then for like more advanced functionality that might come a little bit later. So I'm sorry I can't give you like exact dates, but I will make sure we can give another kind of revised update of the different phases and what we're planning. It's a good nudge. Anybody else have any thoughts, or I'll put this one in the chat for web forms. It's great to hear so many people are excited about it. It's really
Yeah, and this
great
kind of
to hear.
feedback or response to the questions, what about this thing? When's this thing coming? Like that is exactly what we need to hear.
Waveforms is going to solve one of my immediate next case studies. So super excited. I mean, in Cato or Waveforms is both going to work.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, we know that there's some bugs for some folks with Encanto, so we're working hard to, yeah, on the web form side. That's exciting to hear.
The
Anybody?
ODK side will be relatively boring for that. The application is going to be super exciting, but it's a relatively simple form, but it solves the problem text to SQL for us. People describe what kind of subsetting of data they want and say, from this table, I want that, and this relationship to that table, and then for every matching record. So it's like a super long, super boring SQL query that we have to write, and people will help us specify, get us like 80% of the way there, but there's still some text in there, some descriptions and some hand waving. So we can't really fully automate it all, but anything that helps us getting there.
Maybe I'll stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone. Nice to see all your faces. It's hard to see everyone when you're sharing. Does anyone else have any final questions maybe before we wrap up? No. If it works for you all, maybe we'll do the same format, open it up, and we'll leave more time because lots of people wanted to share, which was really great. So sorry it was a little bit rushed at the end. All right. Well, lovely seeing you
This
all.
is great discussion. I love hearing about everybody, the variety of things people are working on and seeing concrete examples and hearing all this great stuff from you all.
Yeah, real examples are, yeah, it's also great to see what everyone's working on, but exactly that, like those real examples with the real thing. Sometimes there are too many trees or fruits examples.
Yeah, so. I know we're very aware of that. We're gonna try to do better.
We're gonna stay in the tree cinematic universe for all entity things.
Yeah, you stick in the tree universe, and Florian can handle the turtles.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not doing
it's
turtles
okay for
anymore,
me.
sadly. But
Salmon.
No more turtles for me. But it's linked data, whole of government data, and domestic violence. Not personally, but a system for frontline workers.
Not as something as turtles.
Yeah, but I have one pain point. I'm at the moment working at the Office for Digital Government, so we're directly under the Premier Minister of Western Australia, and we have so many government agencies having people running around with clipboards and paper forms, and there are so many potential case studies running around, and I don't have an ODK server sandbox to demo things and set up test cases. So I'm basically stuck between I'm not paying, I don't have anyone paying for a server at the moment because we don't have an active use running in my team, but I need to demonstrate and I need to showcase things, and I don't want to abuse the ARIA ODK test server for that. So basically, an onboarding tool would be something like bring back the sandbox server from the olden days.
That's great feedback.
Yeah.
Just a tiny thing where you can go completely obligation free, set up a tiny form and let it run, and then like kill it after a day or so. So basically just for the demo day. And it's definitely not something people would be abusing for more than a day. And with a clear disclaimer, forms will be wiped every day. So set it up and show people how easy it is, and then collect some data, use, of course, ARIA ODK, build your own dashboard, bam, there you go. Sold.
Yeah, that's really, I see lots of head nodding. This would be helpful for others. We'll definitely discuss that with the team. That's great feedback.
Transforming transforming the hosting into a freemium model, establishing a free bottom line would be nice.
And of course, if you progress the customize and Kubernetes thing, then you can just use Minikube and just have something that people as dumb as I, as non-technical as I am, run up their own little local ODK server and just use that for local testing and demoing, and go like, so, well, if you need something, go to ODK, pay for the hosting, and don't worry about your server ever again. And I don't want agencies to run their own servers. I just want to use the hosted model, because that's the best use of their money.
Yep, that's great feedback. And we got some feedback in the chat about more kind of a focus on web forms. So it's maybe something we could do on the next call as well. Share more about what we're working on. We try to like balance this month was more on the entity side. So good feedback. All right, should we wrap up?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Thanks
a lot.
everyone.
Okay.
See you next month.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
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 Thank you all. Have a good one. Yeah.